I am Raziel.
What's up guys, Raziel here, and this video is a beginner's guide at level 80 to the Dark Knight rotation, the changes that happened in Shadowbringers. Keep in mind, these are likely to change. Stat weights are going to become more, I don't know, pushed out, more threshed out here in the next few weeks, so we know exactly what the best stats are. However, at this point in time, even though there were some changes to tenacity, I'm of the opinion that you want to go for as much crit and, of course, melding direct hit as you did in Stormblood into as much as you can for the Dark Knight. Now, whether or not this will change is completely up in the air at this point, but this video is less about stat weight and is more about the actual rotation and what has changed. So, first and foremost, quite a bit has changed with the Dark Knight. In fact, it plays quite differently than it did in Heavensward or in Stormblood. I'm of the opinion that it feels much better than it did in Stormblood. However, I still am kind of partial to the Heavensward Dark Knight, but that's all in the past. Let's fucking move forward. So, first and foremost, you'll notice that we lost quite a few things. That we lost Soul Survivor. I'm not going to go through everything we lost. You'll notice when you have your Dark Knight what abilities are gone. There'll be an icon, there that will have a little cross through it, and it'll be grayed out. So you have to take them off your hotbars because they're no longer abilities in the game. In Stormblood, the primary thing you had to do was weave dark arts into almost everything that you could. Almost every ability you could. Dark Mind, Siphon Strike, Soul Eater, Blood Spiller, Quietus, Abyssal Drain. This goes on and on and on and on. That is no longer the case. And also, some of the abilities that we still have from Stormblood behave differently than they did. For example, Blood Weapon no longer gives us haste. And it is only a 10-second duration, and there is no way to extend Blood Weapon as there was in Stormblood, where you could extend Blood Weapon. And Blood Price is no longer in the game. Blood Weapon, primarily you're going to be wanting to use on cooldown, but with some exceptions. I'll go into that in a little bit. And again, the rotation is likely to get tweaked a bit more. This is all off of my own experience in the leveling process and doing dungeons and the trials. So yeah, keep that in mind when you go forward. What I say in this video isn't, be all end all, and anyone who disagrees with me is a fucking idiot. That's not how this works, okay? So let's keep going. So Blood Weapon is going to restore MP on hit and give you 10 blood gauge for every weapon skill and spell landed. The biggest change came from Delirium, where in the past it would cost blood to use, 50 blood to use, and it would just restore a chunk of your MP. That is no longer the case. Delirium is a lot like Warrior's Inner Release now. It lets you spam Quietus and or Blood Spiller with no cost for 10 seconds. So, and it is on a 1.5-minute cooldown. Now, another thing, in the past on AoE polls, we would be able to Abyssal Drain pretty much non-stop, Dark Arts Abyssal Drain to get, and then we'd go into Quietus to get mana back and just spam that. You can no longer spam it. It is on a 1-minute cooldown, but its healing effect is greater than it was in Stormblood. And so it has now become also a part of your single target rotation that you're going to hit on cooldown on a single target fight. On a multi-target fight, it's a little more complicated. You're still going to want to use it on cooldown after the first initial use. Depending on how large of a pull you make, you may want to save it for the heal, because keep in mind now, things are quite a bit different in terms of our AoE rotation. Blood Spiller and Quietus, our two main blood spenders, are mostly the same. We got a third blood spender now at level 80, Living Shadow. This you're going to want to use as often as possible during high damage windows, such as the opening of a boss fight, when Trick Attack is up if there is a ninja in your fight. So yeah, keep that in mind. Also, in the past, Carve and Spit, you had to Dark Arts Carve and Spit. You wanted to get the most damage out of it, or you would use it rarely without Dark Arts to gain MP back. Now it just has really high potency as if it was Dark Arts by default, and it also restores MP. So that's going to be used on cooldown as well. We also get 2 stacks of plunge now. I would suggest during boss fights that you know there's going to be a mechanic coming in where movement is going to be required, getting from one side of a platform to the other, for example. I would suggest saving at least 1 charge of this. Otherwise, you're going to be wanting to use it on cooldown in general. Or if you need to do multiple pack pulls, you can use it that way as well. Unleash is the same, but we also have a chain for Unleash, Stalwart Soul. Stalwart Soul is going to restore MP, and it increases blood gauge by 20. So on your AoE pack pulls, very, very, very useful. Now, some of the we also have the Blackest Night. Again, in my opinion, it's the best tank cooldown in the game. 15-second recast time, and when the effect is absorbed, you get Dark Arts. But Dark Arts is different now. Dark Arts is a proc. Okay, and in the past we had, we have to constantly keep up Dark Side. It was a toggle on, toggle off ability. You always have it on no matter what. So it's still in the game, but it's not an ability you toggle. It's a resource. It's a timer that keeps your damage up, and you want to keep Dark Side up all the time. How do we do that? Well, Dark Arts is enabled anytime you hit Flood of Shadow or Edge of Shadow. These are Edge of Darkness and Flood of Darkness respectively, until they morph into Shadow. Later on, just as you level, they will change. So, looking here, as you can see, I'm going to point it out. If I use Edge of Shadow, a timer appears here, right? This timer signifies Dark Side is up. You want Dark Side to be up all the time. However, if you just spam this, right, and keep in mind, Edge of Shadow, Flood of Shadow and Edge of Shadow are off the global cooldown. See how quickly I ran out of mana. So mana management is very, very important. And keep in mind your Dark Side can't exceed 59 seconds. Okay? So, what do we do to keep this up? Well, initially, let's do what I do for single target first off. If it is a single target fight, and I want to make sure that I am getting the most damage during a trick attack window. Hold on, I'm getting out of combat here. My mana backs, okay? Generally, what I will do is you need Blood Weapon to get that window open. So you get as much uptime during a trick attack window, a high damage window, as possible. So what I will do is blood weapon right out of the gate, free pull, get Dark Arts up. Okay, you want to get as many abilities out as you can to get your blood right into your shadow image there. Okay, right into this. Now keep in mind, Living Shadow is not going to line up. You're going to be spamming Blood Weapon here. Living Shadow is not going to line up every time with every single damage window. It just flat out won't. The timers are off that way. They only synchronize off of an initial pull. So you can get it to sync off of an initial pull, okay? But that's pretty much it. Also, because during that opening window, I wasn't doing this, so I'm going to show you now. During that opening window, I kind of keep a general rule that I'm going to spend mana. If I'm not the main tank, right? I will spend extra mana on Edge of Shadow on a single target boss fight. I will spend the extra mana. However, I will never dip below 3000 MP. Never allow yourself to dip below 3000 MP. If you dip below 3000 MP, you're going to be playing catch up, and you won't have the Blackest Night available to you for tank busters. So, a good way to get the most out of your Edge of Shadow and Flood of Shadow, if you are the target of enmity, so which, you know, for the most part, you're going to be the target of enmity. Just how it's going to work. So what you need to do is get a 2-for-1 with the Blackest Night. anytime, and I can't show you on a target dummy, but anytime you use Blackest Night and the full absorption effect happens, it's broken, you get to spend, you get one free Flood of Shadow or Edge of Shadow. As you can see, this icon right here will highlight. The Dark Knight symbol here will turn yellow, which means you have a free spender. You can use Edge or Flood of Shadow free of cost. Abuse this, especially if you're the main tank. Even if you're off tank, be throwing Blackest Nights on the main tank for a tank buster, for a big hit, so that you can dump a Flood of Shadow, or in an AoE situation, an Edge of Shadow on multiple targets. Okay? Now, as far as the AoE rotation, how it's different than it was in Stormblood is, of course, you're going to go in, but instead of hitting Edge of Shadow, you're going to hit Flood of Shadow, hit everything to get your Dark Arts up. Okay? Use Abyssal Drain, drop your Salted Earth, and again, I'm going far slower than I normally would so you guys can see what I'm doing. If you're going to use your ability here to spam Quietus over and over, you're going to use Delirium that way. Okay? Now, as you can see, and then I get a Blood Weapon back up, just never let yourself drop below 3000 MP. And then you're going to fill in everything in between all your off global cooldowns with your 1-2-3 combination, Hard Slash, Siphon Strike, into Soul Eater. Soul Eater heals regardless of if you're in your tank stance or not, and in general, you're always going to be in your tank stance unless you're not the main tank and you don't want to pull threat. Because as you know, or maybe you don't know, Grit no longer, it only increases your threat, your enmity. It no longer reduces how much damage you do or decreases how much damage you take. You're going to want to keep Grit up all the time if you're tanking. All the time. If you're not tanking, you can pull it down and then pop it again if you get into an ad phase or something like that to pull threat. Or make sure you pop it up again if the main tank dies and you have to pull threat. That's pretty much a basic rundown. Now guys, once things get far more fleshed out and I have more opportunity to practice and get into how things run, I will update this guide, perhaps make even another one with far more detail, a far more precise rotation. But generally speaking, you want to use Delirium during your huge damage windows. You want to use Abyssal Drain on cooldown. You want to use Carven Spit on cooldown. You want to use Blood Weapon on cooldown. You want to keep Salted Earth up as much as possible. In AoE situations, you're going to want to pull threat with an Unleash directly into Stalwart Soul. Also, that regenerates mana. So if you fuck up, right, and you start spending like way too much mana, let me dump my mana here, and you need mana back, right? You're like, shit, I spent too much. And you don't have Blood Weapon for some reason, right? See, this is a good way. Blood Weapon mixed with this, good way to get your MP back up. Go Quietus. So generally speaking, mana management is still very, 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 very important. But you're no longer spamming Dark Arts between everything you do and managing it that way. And you always want to keep Dark Side up. If Dark Side is down, you're doing it wrong. Dark Side should never expire during a fight. Keep it up. An additional thing, Living Dead are Invuln is still exactly the same as it was in Stormblood. Exactly the same. Treat it the same way you did before. Use Rampart and Shadow Wall as they're the same, much as you can, in the situations where you need it. I also, keep in mind, we now have Arm's Length as a tank. So, pushback mechanics, use those for that. And then we have our AoE-wide 10% magical damage cooldown that is on a 1.5-minute cooldown. Dark Missionary. Use it to help your party out when a big magic attack is coming in that's going to hit everybody. It's very, very helpful, very effective. 10%. I actually wouldn't be surprised if it gets buffed here soon to 15%. So that's pretty much my overall guide, guys. Everything else that I didn't mention, you know, such as Dark Mind, Reprisal, a lot of these other abilities, Unmend, they remain unchanged. We still have Shirk, so use it. We still have Provoke. So, yeah, guys, we have Interject. That's my overall guide. Bottom line is, keep your OG CDs on cooldown. Time your Delirium in that window, your Delirium and your Living Shadow as best you can during DPS windows, high damage windows. Get 2 for 1 with the Blackest Night to get Edge of Shadow or Flood of Shadow as often as you can. And never let Dark Side go away. Never let Dark Side go away. Anyway, guys, I'll make a much more detailed guide, much more precise once I have more experience into Extreme and Savage modes. But thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Follow me on Twitch if you want to come hang out with me, and then we can do some content together. Or if you just want to shoot the shit or make fun of me, I don't give a fuck. If you like my content, thanks so much. Make sure you like and follow. Hit the alert bell so you know when I get more videos. If you didn't like it, go fuck yourself. I don't care. But this has been Razio, guys. Twitch is on the screen right now, and as always, my friends, keep it real.